You're looking at, probably about 15 centimetres thick. It's pretty big. It's a huge, huge, voluminous book. So what students get, they get 4 sequential scenarios to work through, representing 4 different times, a particular season, in a particular orchard. So they get these rolled out sequentially. For each scenario, students must decide the best practice course of action for a grower. They've got to submit this as a report. So if you like, they get a snapshot of the particular day and what's come before it. And they've got to decide whether they need to carry out any sort of control actions on that particular day or in the next coming days. Now, these scenarios, they grow in difficulty as the season progresses. So they do 4 of them, and they do them sequentially, and each 4 is at a different part of the season. But each scenario carries the history of the previous one. Okay, so gradually as they go through the season, you get this fairly rich history of things that have happened within the orchard that students have to consider when they're deciding to which sprays to apply or what to do. Now, reports are submitted every week, so the scenarios are rolled out over the week. So the first one's the first week, second one's the second week, do a week at a time. They have to submit reports before the close of the scenario and before they do the one subsequent to it. So after the deadlines are closed, the next scenario is revealed. And I don't accept any late submission. So once the close-off time is passed, that's it. They can't submit any more, and they've got to go on to the next one. And that, of course, that is because the best practice history is now embodied in that subsequent scenario. So that's what they need to do. Now, because as the scenario, as they go through the season, things get more complex because you've got more of a history that's occurred. And they're actually more complicated decisions to make as you're going through. They're worth different marks. So you can see there 2 marks towards the final grade for the first one, which is relatively straightforward, 3 marks for the next one, and then it increases to 4 marks for the last 2. And then I give them an option to put some reflections down as to what they thought they might have done better, how they found the scenario, that type of thing. So let me show you an example of, I'll just go through this last slide first. They do a practice scenario first, so don't just throw them into it. They have another fictitious orchard. It's formative assessment only, so once they get to the stage where they've got to give a report, they're then given a model answer. It's the type of thing I expect them to produce for me. And I think this helps scaffold the students' learning. They get used to the interface. They know exactly what I expect them to give me for their assessment. So let's now move on to SBL Interactive, and I can show you what the scenario looks like. Here's one of the screens. I did think about actually walking you through the scenario in SBLI Interactive, but I felt that that's probably dicing with chance a bit, and that going out and running you through another server might just be a bit hazardous. So I've just made some screen dumps here of the type of screens that students would see. So you can see here there's a little activity window here, sometimes called the location window in SBLI. This just shows the environment that students are seeing, and this is the second scenario, so they've already done one. This gives them a bit of an explanation of what the date is, where they're at as far as the orcharding scene is concerned, a bit of an introduction to what they need to do. And it says here at the end, okay, does Liam, our grower, need to do anything else? Mentioned here about what he did at the end of the last scenario. So they can, from this screen here, click the links that appear and gather more information about the orchard. So, for example, they can just go to the next slide. They can get the predicted weather says that it's a nice day for spraying, and the next couple of days are going to be all right. They can have a look at their computerised spray diary, and they can check as to what's gone on in the past. So this is something New Zealand growers have to do as a matter of course. It's a legal requirement if they're exporting. They've got to take records of their spray application. So students can go through and actually look at what's happened up to this point in time in the scenario. So they get that information. Here I decided to narrow it down a bit for them, and that when you look at various pests and diseases in orchards, there are ones that are important at specific times of the growing season. So here students have to select which ones they think those are. The system will tell them immediately which ones those are and give them some feedback. So here you can see our fictitious student selected codling moth, and it says no, it's not codling moth. It's not an issue at this time. So essentially what the system does now is narrow down the options for them. So it's a bit of formative assessment. It more or less tells them, okay, these are the important ones you have to think about at this time of the year. So it does assist the scaffolding a bit with them. Now they can go on and they can look at the various data to do with the pests and diseases that they might have to consider. So, for example, here we have the 3 problems, and you can see fire blight there, and I know fire blight is certainly something that's an issue with Australia and New Zealand at the moment. So there it is in that list. This is the thing to consider for this time of the year. And so students can look now at monitoring data for each of these. So, for example, if they wanted to have a look at their fire blight prediction data, for example, they could click that, and they would see something that a grower would actually see, or very similar. In these export orchards, growers have online models they can consult to see the status of these diseases, or at least the conditions that might cause them in the orchard. So students have access to data of that nature, so they can see that it will help them come to a decision as to what they need to do. So I've shown you an example of one, but actually there's a lot of other models they would consult as well, but we can't get through them all. So at the end, after looking at all the models, looking at the monitoring data, looking up the reference, going through their manual, they should be in a position to actually recommend what the grower should do at this stage. So that is what students need to submit to me. A recommendation, but not just a recommendation, but also a justified recommendation. So if they come up with something that they think needs doing, they actually have to justify it. So explain why that's important based on the monitoring data that they've looked at. So essentially, that's how it works. As I say, the lessons are a little bit skimpy because I can't go right through it with you. But you can see essentially what's required in this case. Now, I might just have a look at the, let me just have a look at some of the comments here. Yeah, students can, well, they can record their thoughts in the reflections, and some of them do note a few things about that. Open textbooks. Yes, it's an open textbook exercise, so it's certainly not